The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Shahmeer Mirza. Shahmeer is the Director of R&D at 7-Eleven. Shahmeer, welcome to the show.
How's it going, JP? How are you?
Yeah, good, man. Thank you. Excited to have you here finally. I know we've been talking about this for a while, so I'm delighted to get you on the show. So we've got a lot to cover, so let's jump straight in. Let's start with yourself, please. Could you give us an overview of your background in technology? From where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way, and take us up to today as the Director of R&D for 7-Eleven.
I, like many of your guests, have a somewhat non-traditional path. Got started with an undergraduate degree in chemical engineering and started selling my capabilities in terms of controls when I started work for PepsiCo. So got deeper and deeper into actually using data and AI to control processes when making snacks. Some of my first projects that leveraged computer vision were during my time working in manufacturing in the R&D division at PepsiCo. Over time, I realized that I was super passionate about computer vision and the AI side of things. So I decided to get a master's in computer science from Georgia Tech. I spent the last couple of years hyper-focusing in machine learning and computer vision specifically. And during my time at PepsiCo, I got recruited by the team at 7-Eleven to help build out the cashierless store. So this is a capability that is much like an Amazon Go, where we have someone walk into the store, they pick up what they want, and they leave. And so I led that effort for 7-Eleven. We have a store open at our store support center, which is what we call our primary corporate building. And that was an incredible adventure and learned a ton about not just growing a team, but building a capability from the ground up in terms of innovation. During that time, leadership started recognizing the department's skills and abilities to really expand on some of that innovation that leverages computer vision and machine learning. And so over the last 2 years, I've been in my role, a little over 2 years, as Director of R&D, where I've led our innovation and product development agenda. So my focus is on the engineering side of things. I have a product development counterpart. But really, the focus here is on building out the innovation for 7-Eleven so that we can not just do what the market's doing, but leapfrog competition long-term. So how do we really elevate convenience? How do we take the gaps that exist in the customer experience, both in the digital realm, as far as capabilities that exist in terms of search for our app, for example, as well as the physical? So how do you bridge digital experiences within the stores themselves and innovate in that space?
Thank you so much. Really helpful feedback and helps add context to the role that you have now as the Director of R&D. You've already given some of the landscape of the broader data org within 7-Eleven, but I definitely want to talk about that in a bit more detail because that will help lead into your role and your group's function. So take us behind the scenes of 7-Eleven. Everyone knows the brand, but most people are probably not as aware of just how developed your data organization is and some of the cool, innovative work that you're working on. So help us visualize the broader organization, and then we can talk about your group specifically working on the more computer vision and machine learning aspects.
Absolutely. 7-Eleven North America, the SEI, the division that I work for, we are actually a Fortune 50 company. So for context, we're bigger than IBM, we're bigger than P&G, just in the US alone, and US and Canada. And so the scale of our data is absolutely enormous. There are 10,000 plus store footprint across the US. And over the years, we've continued to expand rapidly, which means we are at petabyte scale as far as data is concerned. We have millions of transactions a day, millions and millions of rewards customers, and folks that interact with our systems daily. And what that means for us is we're constantly working on processing that data, and we have an enormous cloud infrastructure that does that. We are across a couple of different cloud services. We're multi-cloud, but our data lake is primarily in Azure. Our services, though, the customer layer exists in AWS. As far as our capabilities for data processing, BI, all of that's within our data lake team. My group specifically focuses on customer facing innovation that leverages machine learning and computer vision. So while the data lake team has a lot of the data science capability and analysis capability, like forecasting, anything to do with workforce management, anything to do with BI data, the primary focus within R&D is building out novel products. So, for example, over the last couple of years, our focus has been around frictionless retail and around IoT infrastructure. So, getting devices within our stores fully connected. Now, we work a lot with the data lake team because our data from IoT, for example, gets sucked straight into the data lake where further analysis is done, and we can do things like predictive maintenance. But primarily, our focus is really on new product development and innovation itself. And our team consists of product managers, designers, engineers, software engineers, machine learning engineers, computer vision engineers, people who are focused across the full spectrum of capabilities as far as innovation exists today in the retail space.
Excellent. So, staying on your group specifically, working on the more cutting edge side of future use cases for computer vision and utilizing machine learning, can you give us a bit more insight into what it's like day to day, just from all aspects, from the overall size of the group, how many people are on your team, and then what you're working on day to day and some of the unique challenges and what makes it so interesting?
Yeah, so we have just under 70 people within the R&D department that report through this building, the R&D group. So most of those are engineers. We have about 64 total engineers, most of whom are full-time and a few contracts. And our primary objective is day to day to focus on delivering that innovation for a particular product or to do exploratory work. So we define our work in two chunks, basically, really three chunks. One is ideation and discovery. What sort of things will we try out to see what sticks, build early stage prototypes, rapid prototyping to validate that an idea is worth pursuing. Once that metric is passed, once we are confident that, hey, there's something here, customers are engaging with this, that's when we move into the second phase of a project. And that's really around doing a pilot. And we typically try to do between 10 and 50 store pilot to validate that product is ready to start scaling. So the test that we're doing there is, have we passed most of the metrics that we need to guarantee that we're ready for scale? And then the third phase, of course, is full scale. We get ready to build out the full scale capabilities, the monitoring, the reliability, everything across the spectrum of capabilities for that product, and then launch it nationally so that we can actually go to our numerous stores. So day to day for our engineers, what that means is our focus is on thinking through what are the next emerging trends and phases within innovation that we should be focusing on as far as exploratory groups, and then really prototyping on them. For example, we've spent previous years looking at computer vision applications for planograms, for shelf inventory monitoring, things like that. For our groups that are working on products that are ready for pilot, their focus is really on hardening those existing prototype designs that we initially tested and validated with customers to a state that we're confident putting them in front of many of our store leaders and actually getting them to use the product with customers and not have us jump in between. And then, of course, the final phase, the third phase, the day-to-day for those engineers really looks like, how do we make sure our systems are as reliable and scalable as possible? And whereas in phase 1 and 2, you may have a lot of focus in terms of trying out new algorithms for machine learning or computer vision, or focusing on different model types, your focus in phase 3 really shifts to, how do I make sure my model deploys reliably, and how do I recognize failure mechanisms for that model or for that particular system when it's in the field? How do I make sure that I change out or update the model in a timely manner when I observe data drift?
So, Shahmeer, staying on the team for now, 70 is quite a broad group just for R&D alone. Could you describe the overall dynamics of the group, the various positions that exist, and just like what it's like to be part of that team day to day, from the culture and the energy?
Yeah, it's something that I'm very proud of myself and the leadership team for having accomplished. We started with 5 full-time engineers to get to this point. So it hasn't happened overnight. It's taken 2.5 years to get to this scale. But the skill sets that we really look for are intellectual curiosity and the ability to work on interesting problems and hard problems. If you're excited about that, that's the ultimate metric that we're looking for. And so today, I have 6 folks that report to me. Those 6 people have their own teams each. So there's senior managers and managers, all of whom have teams broken into pods. Those pods work on specific products. So a particular senior manager may be working with a manager or two below him or a staff engineer below him that's the technical lead for separate projects, right? So a staff engineer within 7Next, which is the name of our R&D division, focuses as the key technical leader for a particular initiative. A good example of that is our self-checkout capability. There's one staff engineer who's solely focused on this customer experience build out. So all of the interactions that the customer may have with the UI and any interactions as far as receiving those services and communicating with our backend services. There is a specific staff engineering technical lead for machine learning and computer vision as it relates to our computer vision capabilities in our cashierless store, for example. That person is responsible for leading the ML team. So that team has 6 engineers on it today that are solely focused on research-oriented machine learning. And there's a separate machine learning systems team with an additional 5 engineers that are focused on purely how do I take what is already built in terms of these models and turn it into something that can work in real time, at speed, at scale, with all of the latency issues you may observe, and with all of the various hardware requirements that we have to get the system to run in real time at the edge or in the store.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
Given the size of the overall data and ML group at 7-Eleven, it's quite mature, quite advanced based on the early and continued investment that 7-Eleven has made into this technology. So as somebody who sits at the very top table, you're shaping the direction of future R&D projects. When you look ahead, particularly over the next 2 years, what are some of the projects that you're most excited to see come to fruition to us, the consumer, and also future projects that you're going to start working on?
What I'm probably most excited about is starting to see a lot of the investments we've made in building baseline computer vision and machine learning capability reaching customers. I'm limited in how many details I'm able to share on this, but we ran a pilot very successfully last year for several months where we had this core computer vision capability running for our customers to be able to interact with our self-checkout system. So they would place these items on a kiosk. They would get all of the items recognized in real time, and they'd be able to check out because the cart would be generated instantaneously. This was very successful. And so one of our efforts this year is really focusing on scaling that capability out. And we're doing that in 2 phases. You have your standard self-checkout capability, and that self-checkout capability is a tablet where the customer interacts with a barcode scanner, credit card reader. And what we've developed is this kiosk plugs directly into that tablet. And the reason that's important is regardless of how a particular system is built, we can now go ahead and put in this computer vision capability to augment the existing self-checkout capability. And that enables us to roll as we see customer adoption into more and more stores, as opposed to making a initial capital investment where we just drop in this new capability and see adoption come there. So what I'm probably most excited about is seeing that scale. A lot of the systems we've built are going to collect a tremendous amount of customer interactions for building out better object recognition, product recognition capability at a scale that I'm not certain many others have seen for a pure computer vision capability in the field. And as far as in-house development, I'm not certain there are too many others actually getting to do that. So for us, we get to integrate directly as far as the domain knowledge we have for our particular retail industry, along with building the domain expertise in computer vision. And so we can hyper optimize different use case scenarios. We have greater leeway in how this unit's positioned in stores. And we have direct relationships throughout all of our IT infrastructure to be able to say, hey, we want to leverage this particular set of network capabilities or this particular hardware capability in the store. So as far as emerging trends, seeing an actual product with real-time computer vision capability launching at scale is probably the most exciting thing in my view.
Yeah, absolutely. Staying on the topic then of future projects and what impact it's going to have to the organization. 7-Eleven, based on what you've already told us, is well established and is really focusing on impact and how it can utilize AI and ML to improve customer experience. That is going to have a continued effect on the need to acquire and retain talent, which is something I know you're particularly passionate about. You and I have spoken off air about the culture and the environment. So, speaking to an audience of data professionals, many of whom are always looking for the next exciting place to advance their career, what we've learned today about 7-Eleven is you guys are doing some incredible work and far more advanced than people may have realized prior to this episode. Speaking to an audience of potential future candidates, what is it that you tell people when they come to interview stage at 7-Eleven about the work, the mission, the impact that gets them excited enough to join you guys over some of the other great companies hiring?
Yeah, as far as 7Next is concerned, we really are an internal startup with the backing of an enormous company. So it's all the fun and excitement of getting to work on novel, innovative products that are at the bleeding edge of capability as far as emerging research, but with the backing of and security of a giant corporation that really understands its domain. So you work hand in hand with the domain experts for that industry, but you get to work with the most exciting technologies. So first and foremost, I think that's a super exciting proposition. It's why I joined, and it's why many of the folks here are around. Second is our willingness to invest heavily in these emerging capabilities and make big bets. As I've seen and observed over my career, it's rare for a large company with the resources that 7-Eleven has to be willing to make big bets on these capabilities. And so it's particularly exciting when you really are given the runway to prototype, to test, and to scale these technologies from concept all the way to the final product. The scope of what you get to own here is enormous. You're not working on a tiny portion of a very large system. You are the technical lead many times. You are the lead engineer designing this core capability that's foundational to this product being launched. And that's always a super exciting thing to get to do.
So, Shahmeer, staying on the topic then of continued investment in your organization, going into it in a bit more detail, when you look at the headcount roadmap for the next 12 months, where are you going to see opportunity for people to come and join? What future hiring are you anticipating, and what are the skill sets and roles that you think will be most critical to help you guys stay on top of the project pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. We have 6 full-time roles that we are actively hiring for currently. 2 of those roles are in the computer vision and machine learning domain. So one is for a true computer vision research engineer who's focused on topics such as 3D object segmentation and really focusing on how to separate objects from one another in a particular view. The other role is for a machine learning systems engineer. So this focuses more on taking machine learning models and turning them into production grade systems that work in real time. So for the research engineer, the capabilities that we're really looking for are a strong foundation in machine learning, ideally with some experience in deep learning with PyTorch and other frameworks. TensorFlow is okay too. And having built models previously that do these types of computer vision tasks. For the machine learning systems engineer, really the focus is having a solid understanding of machine learning, but more so strong software engineering principles that allow them to communicate effectively with the machine learning engineers and computer vision engineers and innovate on the core systems and the capability that actually deliver those models and run those models in real time. The other roles that we have are focused across full stack engineering and have ideally skill sets in Node.js and TypeScript, as well as some for site reliability engineering. So we are taking a lot of systems to production. So we do have 1 or 2 roles specifically focused on senior engineers that are building greater, more reliable products. So how do you increase our reliability itself across all of our deployed production systems?
Shahmeer, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your background and your journey to where you are today. And most importantly, the incredible insight into the amazing AI data and ML team at 7-Eleven. I admit when you and I first got connected, I was surprised and impressed at just how far advanced the data and ML org is at 7-Eleven. And it sounds like an incredible place for people to work and have an impact using data and ML. So an exciting place for sure. And the project pipeline sounds, really enticing and also a great place to work day to day. So we thank you for your time. We appreciate you coming on and sharing the insight to your group. And we look forward to having you back on the show in the near future.
Thanks so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.